White Sox fans, welcome into the Sox On Tap podcast presented by On Tap Sportsnet. It's Johnny Nani here alongside Sox Insane after a White Sox loss. Can you imagine that? After another White Sox loss, we're here talking about this team. Man, it's brutal. Besnick, how are you surviving through this? That's what I need to know.
Apathy has set in. I am a little bit mad, but mostly apathetic. These guys are laughable, embarrassing, losers. I could go on.
Right. I think that's all good terminology to describe it. And, it sucks because I think apathy set in a lot last year and we heard that term, but that was more so, I would say, from kind of like the summer months, like June to August is when it really started getting bad. You saw the sell the team signs come out in August, all of that. But the fact that we're here this early is so incredibly bad, especially when I think everyone thought there was going to be maybe a little bit of a refresh. That's the best word I could use to describe it. Maybe they wouldn't go out and be world beaters, but a little bit of a refresh. I think the Tony La Russa stuff last year was obviously a drag. That whole saga, the way that played out, and there's a lot of what's the word? I don't know, kind of laziness surrounding that. Whereas you thought maybe a little more pep in the step. That's been the complete opposite case this year, and they have just trended even worse. 7-game losing streak. You're 7-18 overall, and I mean, it's like bottom 3 in baseball. Bad.
It's horrendous. It's bottom 3 in baseball. We're the one of only 3 teams in Major League Baseball that haven't signed a player to a $100 million plus contract. That came out. Our GM comes out with some ridiculous stuff about accountability. And our guy, NWIC, sounded off about that yesterday on the podcast. I agree with a lot of that. These players are not being held accountable. It's just bad. It's bad at every level of the organization. And there does not look to be a light at the end of the tunnel. So we're in bad shape. We're in bad shape, Johnny.
Yeah, we're down bad. And a lot of these players are down bad, too. We're going to get to some of these comments here about that. And then just talking about the, because obviously a loss always sucks no matter what. But the manner in which you lose and the lifeless effort that you go and see needs to be addressed here. I know we've talked about it some here, but yeah, there you go. You're going to need that one. Crack them. All right. Before we get into it completely, listeners, make sure go subscribe on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube, press the alert button so you know when we go live. Join these podcasts in the YouTube comments. We'll feature them up here. Share your frustration along with us. Love to have a venting session. That's kind of more what this has turned into than I was hoping to recap some games more so some excitement, but we are where we are. So we got to, I miss fun. Exactly. Stuff like that. I miss fun. That's something I think fun escaped over probably 2 weeks ago. I think that's, it's been that long. So, all right, Bezic, on this game specifically here, you go out and it's trying to salvage just one game of this road trip, one game of this series. And early on, some okay at bats at least look better than the slop that was there last night in the back half of the Monday game as well. But then you get punched in the mouth a little bit in the third inning. You don't have a killer instinct with Michael Kopech on the mound, and he let it slip. 2 out, it plunked Springer. The Blue Jays were able to scratch across 3 runs, and then the air completely got sucked out of this team. And the finish to it was absolutely horrendous. I know you wrote the recap. I'm sure you have some figures for me, some disgusting figures to share with me. Go ahead, air it out here.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Kopech, those first 2 innings looked pretty strong. All he gave up was a single, 2 outs in the third inning, and he plunked a batter. Off the top of my head, I don't remember who he plunked, but after that, the wheel started to fall off. I don't know if that got to him mentally. That's what it looked like, because he's shrugging his shoulders. He's throwing his arms up in the air every time the Blue Jays made hard contact. And this is a tough lineup. He had a 2-pitch mix of a fastball and a slider for most of that game until the 5th inning, 4th and 5th, where he started mixing in the curveball and the changeup, which the changeup I heard so much about all offseason and how much that was going to turn him around. And I think he threw one of them for strikes. So, the mentality there is, lacking, where he can't hold it down. And 3 runs crossed the plate with 2 outs, which we've seen happen to Lance Lynn a handful of times this year. The at-bats were, like you said, they were solid until they weren't. And then they scored those 3 runs. And like Sebi Safalos said at the end of the game today, they just curl up into a ball. We've seen that way too many times.
It was absolutely brutal. And then you go and look at the, I believe it was Pinos that shared it out, and the drop down of the at-bats towards the end of the game. And it was the last 11 plate appearances, all but 1 strikeouts. I think that was it. And it was an Elvis Andrus ground out. That's just tells you how it feels, checked out these guys are. I know that you're missing a couple of guys here, but my good God, even the meat of the lineup, Eloy struck out 3 times. Robert, who is down extremely horrendous right now, struck out 3 times again. He looked like he wanted to cry post game.
Yeah, he's looked horrendous at the plate. He's completely lost. I don't know what's happened to that guy. He got off to a hot start, and he was looking like, he was going to put something together this year for the first time. The defense is still there. Luckily, I know they had a couple of near collisions yesterday, but, he's robbed a few home runs, and it looks great. It looks great in the field. So he's not taking his struggles there, but the struggles at the plate are horrendous. I know a lot has been made about him batting leadoff. I shared some stats on Twitter earlier today about him being like 4 for 42 in his last, however many games that is. And they replaced him with Elvis Andrus, who's not much better. So this whole lineup is slumping, and there's no relief in sight. I don't know how they turn this around.
Yeah. Dude, the Luis Robert stuff, it just hurts my soul because they're you saw just the slightest little bit of flash a couple weeks ago, right? And you're like, man, this could be some power. He 2 home runs in a game at Pittsburgh, and you're like, all right, this is more like the Luis Robert that we expected. And to see him down that bad and chase that bad, and dude, the one time he actually does make hard contact, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. In the first inning, smokes a ball off Kikuchi to right field, and it hits off the wall. But then he's going into second base, and I think he would have been safe if he stayed on. But of course, he slides over the bag, and then is tagged out. And look, that's another thing that I know they still had some okay plate, not him specifically, but some the other guys still had some okay, plate appearances after. But that in itself, when it happens that early, I know like yesterday, they struck out 3 times in the first inning, set a terrible tone for the game. This is another one of those, deflating moments, and it happened so early in the game that, I feel for the guy. I do feel bad for him, but at the same time, you're pro. I saw like some discourse that, can you blame him for not wanting to show? Yeah, you can blame him. You're fucking pro. 100%. Go out there and do a job, right?
Right. And, the thing about that play is he's had trouble sliding. We've seen this as an issue with him before, where he could have used his arm to cradle the bag. I know he's coming in pretty hot trying to leg that out. He crushed that ball and just misses a homer by a couple of feet. But you don't stay on the bag and you get tagged out because you didn't slide correctly or find some type of creative slide to do so. And you know what? That whole play is very indicative, or a microcosm of the way this whole White Sox season has gone. Not just the fact that he got tagged out, but you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, a team that made the playoffs last year that looks like a real perennial contender. They play in the AL East, one of the toughest divisions in baseball. And on that play, it exemplified what it looks like to be a winning baseball team. He crushes this ball to right field, misses a home run by just a couple of feet. And what does the outfielder do? He pulls up. He's like, this is either going to be gone or this is coming off the wall. It comes off the wall. He fields it cleanly. He fires a fucking strike to second base on a 1-hop. Bichette fields it cleanly, and he puts the tag down, and he holds the tag on him while he slides off the base. This is winning baseball. This is what we expected from the Chicago White Sox that we're not getting. That's where they need to be, and that is not where they aren't. So that's the fucking accountability that I want to see.
Right. Yeah. And obviously, accountability is a buzzword right now within White Sox fandom. And, rightfully so, because Ken Williams says there's not an accountability problem. Yeah, we got a comment here. Yeah, thanks, Robbie, for that one. People forget that accountability is not a problem in the White Sox organization. Right. That's what we're talking about here. And once again, Steve had that rant yesterday. Go and check out the show from yesterday that Tony and Steve had, because that was fresh off the comments there. But, man, it's stuff like that. And it also, kind of chaps my ass that Pedro Grifol had talked about, extensive attention to detail. And this was supposed to be a character trait of this guy, right? And it's supposed to be trickling down. Well, Lance Lynn, are the system issues getting in the way of figuring out the details of the game? I want to know, because there has not been much of that at all. Haven't played any clean, crisp baseball, maybe aside from 2 games. I could probably count out 2 games that they've actually played some crisp baseball.
Right.
And that goes back to the accountability thing there. It's all throughout the organization, though, Vesnick. It's not just, one player, one coach, one executive. I think it's a shared, right. It's a shared blame there. And it's honestly hurts my soul to be talking about this, because you know what? We can go and sit here and we're going to sit here and discuss these problems. But at the end of the day, where does the change have to come from? The very, very top, right? And we know the likelihood of that.
Right, exactly. So the change has to come from the top, but Jerry's not selling. Don't hold your breath. Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn are not getting fired this week. Don't hold your breath. But the thing that I want to see is these players held accountable. I want to see, honestly, at this point, I want a shakeup. I want to see somebody get traded. These guys, you look at those last 11 plate appearances, 10 strikeouts in 11 plate appearances, 17 strikeouts in the game, 33 strikeouts in the series, 2 runs, 11 hits, 1 double, 10 singles. We didn't hit the ball out of the ballpark once. Where is this? The accountability needs to be on the players at this point. All the good vibes of Pedro Grifol's hiring, spring training, they said all the right things. And here we are 3 weeks into the season, and Pedro Grifol's run out of coach speak. He doesn't know what to say.
Yeah. Like you said, I think you had said it in our chat. You said, I almost feel bad for the guy at this point, because there is honestly nothing more that he can say. But at the same time, I go and look at that situation, and it's like, okay, is he not going full press on these guys because he doesn't want to lose the locker room, not even a month into the season, not even a month into his first big league managing gig? That these are all things that I've said it 100 times on this show, and I wish I could be a fly on the wall, because I would love to know what goes on behind the scenes there. Unfortunately, that capability is not possible. So all we can do is judge by the external appearance, by what we see on the field, by the body language we see in the dugout, by what they say after the game, and what's recorded and what's written, what's reported. And it's all just a cesspool of suck right now.
Right. And now we're coming home, which is always nice to see. Always nice to be at the ballpark. I don't go to many games anymore just because of my schedule, but it's nice to be there. The product on the field is horrendous, and we're playing the best team in baseball, who is 20-4 coming into this game. It's going to be another tough series.
Yeah, swept us last weekend. The Tampa Bay Rays coming into town for 4, not just 3, for 4. And you know what that means? The start of a homestand, Besnick, and that brings us to the title of this episode, is that Rick Hahn will most likely speak to the media before the start of Thursday's game. So if you thought the Ken Williams stuff, it was bad enough, that was just the appetizer. We're just getting warmed up here. Rick Hahn's going to bring you the main course in a very lawyerly fashion, of course. But that's coming on Thursday. And the platitudes that are going to be spewed out, Resnick, it's only going to further enrage this fan base.
Absolutely. Everybody's still mad. More and more people are growing apathetic. This stadium is going to be empty by the end of the season if the season keeps going the way it is. I do, in fact, think that they're going to play better at some point, but you've already dug yourselves into a hole where you're 11 games below 500. Even if they start playing well, you got a long way to go to make that up. I don't see that happening. So with Rick Hahn coming out, it's just going to put more fuel on the fire. You're not going to get any straight answers. You're going to get a whole lot of lawyerly speak that means very little. He's kind of a master at doing that too, at, speaking a lot and saying just absolutely nothing. So he'll probably echo a lot of Kenny's statements because that's what they do. And yeah, Steve, I would love to see some heads roll down 35th Street, but we all know it's not going to happen. If it happens, it'll happen in the offseason, and Rick will get Kenny's job, and Chris Getz will get Rick's job, and Kenny Williams' son will get Chris Getz's job. So this is a mom and pop shop organization, baby. We just hire friends and family.
That's where we're at. And that's why I think you put it well. They don't hold your breath. Jerry's not selling the team, and all those things that you just mentioned there. Dude, it's just open mouth, say words. That's the Rick Hahn press conference preview there in a nutshell, dude. I'm not looking forward to it because you know what the thing is. I go and I see and I interact with fans of this team on Twitter, and I think we all it goes back to a comment that we had earlier. I miss fun. We all want to have fun. We all want to enjoy this team, but there is something that I said a couple of episodes ago, and that any positive that they do, any good that they do going forward, can't even genuinely be celebrated because they have already dug this hole so deep. And that's what really pisses me off, because it's going to be a summer of just bitterness instead of, maybe the roller coaster. I like riding the roller coaster because it brings you some highs, and sure, the lows suck after when it comes off, but man, we're not even going to have that. It's just going to be baseline and shit. Who knows? Maybe we might just drop that thing off and open up the crater into hell.
They might be forced to at this point. And, it's on my part, I really did think this season was going to go a little differently, especially in the early going here. When we had that 4-game series to start the season in Houston, we played well. We showed some fight. We pitched well. We took 2 of 4. They've been scuffling a little bit, but they're starting to turn things around. And I really did think this was going to be different. And now I'm looking at this, and maybe this is a bit of a tinfoil hat theory. It's seeming less and less likely that it's a tinfoil hat theory, that Pedro Grifol was hired to do a rebuild, and he was brought in for that reason. And this is looking like it. You look at this roster, and it's actually sneaky old. You've got Hendricks, 35, Lance Lynn, 35. You've got Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly. Even Tim Anderson is going to be on the wrong side of 30 pretty soon. Hanser Alberto, Elvis Andrus, all these veterans that are just at the end of their career, just trying to latch on somewhere. And then to top that off, you have all this inexperience in the dugout, on the field, with Oscar Colas and Lennon Sosa and Romy Gonzalez, all these guys that, they have potential, but they're not helping right now. And I was sold that they were going to try to compete this year, but they're not. This is looking, I've got Rebuild 3.0 as my moniker here. So that's what this is looking like. I will go back and say that they will play better at some point. And to your point, those wins will be hollow, right? Because they're not going to make a difference. Yeah. And that's the hardest pill to swallow.
Yeah. It's man, where we're at right now, I think that, like you said, tinfoil hat time there, maybe not so tinfoil. Maybe we're actually getting to, something scratching the surface of that there. I think it'll be telling, what happens direction of this team. But when you go and talk about it, like your name there, I see Rebuild 3.0, and this has been said many a time, and it's all been, it's been spread so wide because it's true, that I don't trust, no White Sox fan trusts anyone in the organization to have their fingerprints on any of this at all. So people talk about that, and it's easy to say after a game, blow it up. This is what you got to do. I don't want to go through and have the same management overseeing another rebuild. They get a third chance. Fuck that. I'm not on board with that.
Not at all. And, that's what they do. They just kind of throw it together and hope for the best. They don't despite saying things like accountability and attention to detail, they don't do those things. They just kind of throw together a bunch of prospects and hope for the best, hope that this all comes together. And they just don't go about things the right way. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough season. It might even be a tough next season, which is even another difficult pill to swallow.
All right, we got one question in here, and it comes from Facebook. Dave Bennett asked, "Who do we trade as a statement?" That's something that you talked about maybe like shake up something like that in here, and I think we can tie it in. Sebi Zavala's comments. He says after the game, he was frustrated, obviously, but he says we have to find a way to start winning. Can't curl up in a ball. If you curl up in a ball, you leave our locker room. Do we see a trade? If you do, who would you trade as a statement?
As a statement. And it's tough because he's hurt right now, and he's been a 2-time All-Star, and he's been a batting champion. But the whole hashtag change the game marketing slogan behind this whole rebuild was because of Tim Anderson. And it's not to any fault of Tim's, but that is the guy you trade. You have to move on from all these players. You have to move on from this core. And he's kind of at the center of it now that Jose Abreu is gone. He's that guy. This might be a little unfair. This whole rant might age not well. But that is the guy who I think about, not just because of all the things I just said, but also he's going to be somebody who will give you some value in a trade that other teams will actually want versus a lot of these guys that – are making a lot of money and don't produce.
Right.
So Tim is that statement trade that we're going in a different direction.
Right. Yeah, it's a good answer there. And I like the kind of way that you described that there, because I thought at the end of your bit there, I was thinking the exact same thing. Does anybody even want any of these players? And the only ones I can think of right now, top of my head, would be Tim Anderson, as you mentioned, and Dylan Cease. But
right.
That's that's where we're at. So,
right.
Speaking of Dylan Cease, we roll on. We're almost out of here. This episode of Sox on Tap. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's just look ahead weekend. Once again, Tampa Bay Rays coming in for 4, and that aforementioned Dylan Cease will be on the mound against Shane McClanahan, a little rematch of last weekend here. Besnick, people go ahead and mock me, make the jokes all you want. I'll be out at the ballpark tomorrow, but I may have some jokes of myself there. More to come. Sox on Tap Twitter account. However, McClanahan versus Cease is still a good pitching matchup, regardless of the absolute slop in the dugout along the third base line.
Yeah, they had a good. Cease had a rough outing. He only lasted 4 innings. It was the first time in his last 24 starts that he only lasted. That he didn't make it through 5 innings. The Rays are a tough lineup. Anybody on that lineup 1 through 9 can take you deep. You've got to be careful pitching through that lineup. So hopefully, hopefully that sharpens up Cease for this next outing and he has a nice bounce back. But McClanahan's tough, and this team is struggling bad. So I expect, a great pitcher's duel and a low-scoring game. That's one of many winnable games this year. Was that one? That was the one where Rosarena walked it off in extra innings, where a couple of other curious decisions by Pedro Grifol happened. So hopefully a better outcome, but it'll be a great game. And I would never, people who want to go to the ballpark, go to the ballpark. It's fun. It's always a good time to see your friends, have a couple of beers, sit out in the sun, even if the product on the field sucks. So
did it a lot in 2018. Yeah. So granted, different different point in this timeline of whatever failed rebuild 2.0 here, but one more thing that I've got is, please, for the love of God, can we just have some better plate appearances, maybe some excitement behind just singles? I know it's not going to change overnight, and there is a lot of issues with just the profiles of these guys and how they are, but my God, can we please just have some excitement, something that I can put my hands together and actually clap about for the White Sox?
How about a home run
on offense? That would be amazing.
How about a home run?
Right. And dude, it sucks that we are at that point of having to say that. But my God, if I saw that offensive showing there that we just saw over the last 2 games in Toronto, even the back half of that first game of the series too, that was bad too.
Yeah.
If I see that tomorrow, man, it'll be an early night. I'll pack it in as soon as CeCe McClanahan are out of the game.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, but enjoy yourself. It'll be a good game, I think. Hopefully we can come out on top. We just, at this point, we talk about we haven't won a series. We haven't won back-to-back games. I will just take ending this losing streak because we're at 7. We had an 8-game losing streak at this time of the year last year. This sucks living through this again. So how about we just end the losing streak? Is that too much to ask?
Right. The summoning baseball gods, please. We've been through enough. Can we please end a losing streak here? That's what we're hoping for here at Sox on Tap. We appreciate everyone tuning in here. Make sure go and subscribe on YouTube, On Tap Sportsnet, so you don't miss a show. Go and check out our social medias at Sox on Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. And that'll about do it for this edition. That was the Rick Hahn press conference preview. Get ready for the lawyer speak word salad. It's coming when the White Sox return home against the Tampa Bay Rays. Vesnick, until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox